Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And today we're going to talk about our relationship to players as dungeon masters, and if it is a teacher-pupil relationship. All right, now, I can hear you already. You're like, "No, it isn't, Scott." Well, I'm not sure of that. Let's explore this. All right. So, Dungeons and Dragons is an incredibly special game. It was born in 1974. It is the brainchild, and in my humble opinion, Dungeons and Dragons would not exist in any format without the incredible courage, the incredible genius, the incredible persistence, the incredible just drive and passion of Gary Gygax, right? So he birthed Dungeons and Dragons in 1974, and so he comes in, and Dungeons and Dragons, the product, is the greatest achievement of Gary Gygax's life, bar none. Okay, but what's the second greatest achievement? Well, that is the Dungeons and Dragons, the 1980s, in my humble opinion, the 1980s Dungeons and Dragons Saturday morning cartoon. I've been thinking a lot about the Dungeons and Dragons Saturday morning cartoon recently because Dragons of Stormwreck Isle has these pictures of. In my humble opinion, they're clearly the Dungeons and Dragons, the 1980s Dungeons and Dragons cartoon characters, right? There's been some debate about that, but I think if you look at them, it's pretty clear what they are. In my humble opinion, it's clearly them, right? And so, but once you see, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, you're gonna if you were alive in the 80s, you're gonna think about the cartoon, right? So I recently rewatched the entire series, right? And in season 3, episode 26, Cave of the Fairy Dragons, the show opens up, and the show opens up, and our heroes, Hank, Eric, Diana, Sheila, Bobby, Uni, and Presto are all at a river, right? And actually they're just bathing and getting clean. So they've been traveling, on the dusty roads, and they're just having I will say I really have been incredibly touched watching the 1980s cartoon. It's so joyful, right? Like it's a bright, brilliant sun, and so the show opens up, and you see this brilliant, beautiful sunny day, and there's this crystal clear, ultra blue stream, right? And the water's clean, right? Like, it's not like our world, right? If I go to the river, I live near Philadelphia, and God bless the city of brotherly shove. I love Philly. I've lived here all my life. Well, I've lived in different areas, but the majority of my life I've lived in or around Philly, and but the rivers aren't clean, right? They're not crystal blue, right? But here in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons, the realm, right? The kids have come from Earth to the realm of Dungeons and Dragons. In the realm, the water is just crystal blue, right? And and so the kids are there, and they're just having this joyful moment in the stream, and Dungeon Master comes up, and he's like, and you know what he says? Listen to this carefully. He says, "Greetings, pupils," right? He says, "Greetings, pupils." So the player characters are addressed by their Dungeon Master as pupils, right? Now, this show is Gary Gygax's second most important life achievement, right? And in my humble opinion, Gary didn't make nothing that didn't have a deep meaning and that wasn't carrying a message. Every single piece of art that Gary ever produced carried a message, right? And actually, I guess that's not really unique to him. When an artist creates a piece of art, it contains a message, okay? And so and the analogy of us learning from Dungeon Master is not like, it's not like abstract, right? Like, we're Dungeon Masters. Dungeon Master was a Dungeon Master. He is right there guiding his player characters, through the world, right? Like the analogy is direct, right? So today when we as dungeon masters go back and watch the show, we're watching what Dungeon Master says because it's applicable to us, right? And so, directly, in my humble opinion, right? So he says, "Greetings, people. You know what these heroes do? You know what what Hank and Eric and Diana and Sheila and Bobby and Uni and Presto say? You know what they say? They're like, 'Hey, Dungeon Master.' They don't go, 'Hey, slow your roll, short man. Slow your roll, bald man. What are you talking about, pupils? What do you got to teach us?' No. They smile and say hello, and they fully accept that they are the pupil of the Dungeon Master, that he's got something to teach, right? Very interesting. So was Gary saying to us, you do not put on this Dungeon Master cap if you ain't got nothing to teach, right? If you don't know more than your players, you shouldn't be dungeon mastering. I think that's 100% correct, right? Now, I will say this. There is a case for the newbie DM, right? And honestly, I humbly believe that the path to dungeon mastering is through failure, right? You progress through failure to mediocrity, to proficiency, to mastery, right? When you're proficient and you're a master, dungeon master, at this point, if you don't have anything in life to teach, in my humble opinion, I think Gary was saying, your players are your students. You had better have something to teach, or you don't belong in that chair. Okay? Now, if you're in the failure stage, right, which is 1 month to 1 year, depending on who you are. Actually, I'd say about 1 season, 3 months. I don't think you can even become proficient with less than 3 months of dungeon mastery. So you go through failure to it's very challenging. And so the reality is, I think you've got to have something to teach. And I think Gary was clearly saying, these are your pupils, right? And you're like, "Oh, Scott, that's ridiculous. I'm not I don't have anything to teach." Just look at your role, right? So we just talked about what Gary's been saying. Look at what the current 5th edition design team is saying. They're saying there's a lot of talk about session 0. There's a lot of talk about safety, right? We're responsible for the emotional and intellectual safety of our players. That looks a lot like a teacher would be responsible for the safety of their students, right? Like, oh my, this is all just fun and games, but suddenly we're responsible for emotional, intellectual safety, right? This whole idea that Dungeons & Dragons is about fun continues to just crumble. It really doesn't make logical sense, in my humble opinion. So, I watched Dungeons & Dragons, the show, Season 3, Episode 26. Dungeon Master says, "Greetings, pupil." I think Gary was saying, when you reach the proficiency, when you reach the mastery level, the way Dungeon Master clearly has, right? You're a teacher, and you better have something to teach, right? And if you're a player, you better be watching for what your Dungeon Master is teaching. It's important. Well, that's my humble opinion. What's your humble opinion? Do you think the Dungeon Master at the proficiency level, at the mastery set level, is actually a teacher, right? I think at the failure level and the mediocrity level, you're excused. You don't have to have something to teach. Everybody knows you suck then, right? We only get great after we suck. It's like a great comedian, right? They go to bomb when they start, right? But you get to the point where Dave Chappelle's like, "I'm going to land the plane. People are going to laugh," right? Like he's beyond making people laugh, and that's my point. There's a point where we as dungeon masters move beyond just telling a story, just having fun, where we are doing something important. I think we're teaching. That's what Gary meant when Dungeon Master said to the heroes, "Greetings, pupils." Right? Is that how you're going to open your next game? Greetings, pupils! Love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.